Alright, welcome back. What you just saw was me thinking about this project and just kind of writing down and wrapping my head around how I want to get started. There's right ways to do things and there's wrong ways to do things, and then there's my way to do things. This might seem like a giant mess to you, but it makes sense to me. What I'm going to do, today's project, is to create two new faces for this hammer. If you'll recall, in one of the most recent videos I made some threaded rod to fit into this hammer face. Quite happy with that. I'm starting to understand a little bit of logic behind that and improve my die threading skills. But anyway, that's a different video. Go watch it if you want. Today's project is to use this threaded rod to make two new hammer faces. One's going to be aluminum, one will be brass. And I just wanted to get my dimensions started so I can cut my pieces to length, and I've got some material to work with. I probably won't cut anything until I have all of my machining done, and then the final operations will be to turn down the faces that I cut off. So that way I got plenty of material to chuck up in the lathe chuck, and work with. So here's what we're dealing with. Grab a pointer here. So we've got these hammer faces. The overall dimension of each plug or face, if you want to call it, will be a total of 1 inch. The meat portion of this is going to be approximately 3/4 of an inch, and the shoulder portion will be about 1/4 inch. So that's what I'm shooting for. And then there will be a threaded hole using a tap for my threaded rod to go into. So we got several things to work on. First thing I'm going to do is create each of the hammer faces. We're going to be able to use the tailstock. We got to drill a hole. We got to use a tap. You know, there's going to be all kinds of things we get to do with just two simple little hammer faces. So this will be a fun project. Hopefully, this was one of the very early projects I worked on. It turned out well. I've used it, but it could be cleaned up a little bit, but for the moment it's just fine. There's no need to mess with it. But that's what we're going to do. So the overall length of, if you visualize it like this will be 3/4 of an inch. This will be 1/4 of an inch. The total diameter is 1 1/4 inches. The shoulder diameter is 3/4 of an inch. And I mean, that's really the important parts of this. I've got my measurements for reference. The only thing right now to do is to chuck these up and start facing these things down and get our parts made. So I'm going to start with the aluminum because I got a lot more aluminum than I do brass. This piece here was quite expensive, so I don't want to mess it up. So I'm going to do my aluminum piece first, and then we'll move on to the brass. So I'm going to go ahead and get this chucked up and we'll move on. Here we go. Let's get this chucked up. Again, I love this spindle bore being the size that it is. Before we crank that down, I want to make sure I got my full inch and a little extra so I got some room to work with. Let's get this. I gotta a little extra. I think that will do. I don't want too much to stick out, but bring it out a little bit more. That'll be plenty. So let's get that tightened down. And first thing I'm going to do is face it off. And then what we're going to do is turn down the shoulder, which will be 3/4 by 1/4 inch, and then we'll kind of clean it up as best we can. I don't want to remove, this is the final dimension for this piece. This is 1 1/4 inch stock. That's the dimension I'm going for. It can be a little under. I do want to clean it up. Now the brass, that's 1.5 inches. I don't have 1 1/4 inch stock, so I'm just going to use that. But anyway, let's get started. All right, I'm still a beginner. I'm still learning. Not a beginner, but I'm still making mistakes, but it'll be fine. For this, I overshot my dimension. I was gonna go for 3/4 of an inch and I went to 700 thou, so went 50 thou over. It'll be fine. I'm not gonna redo that. I don't want to waste the part, and besides, the threaded hole will go in there and that's what's gonna center it up anyway. So the next operation, I'm going to chamfer these edges, and then what we'll do is a centered drill bit, and we'll drill a hole to the depth for our threading tap, and that will, other than parting it off and then cleaning it up, I'll do a little bit of cleanup on the OD up to an inch, but other than that, that'll complete this part, and then we'll cut it off and face it off. Then we got to do we got to put our threaded rod in there and do that sort of thing. But for now, I just want to get these chamfered and we'll get that hole drilled. All right, so I'm still learning, but I want to do things right. Eventually I won't need to refer to these charts, but for the moment I want a 5/16 24th tap size is what I'm going to use, 24 thread pitch. So we're looking at our drill size to be 17/64 or 9/32 or but I don't have the letter drills. I'm not going to go that crazy. So I think what I'm going to do is start with 17/64. This is aluminum. The tap should run in there just fine. And that's going to get me, I believe, the threads that I'm looking for. So I'm going to drill this out 17/64. And I'm using the chart. You know, this is my tap size, 15/16. So I'm going to go with the smaller of the two, 17/64. So let's get that drilled. In there's going to do. So we will tap that. So the next thing is I just want to tap that hole. So let's get our tap. Let's put some drill hog drill oil in there. And off we go. There we go. So that's in there about a 1/2 inch. I want another 1/2 inch out. There's my inch piece. This piece is ready to go other than facing a little bit off. Again, I want to have this 3/4 of an inch out. So I'm going to face off 3/4 of an inch. And this one is ready to go. And then we'll move on to the brass. Let's go ahead and get that faced off. Again, I want 3/4 of an inch. Guess I could use my, there it is. Okay, let's face that down. I just want to take it off so it's nice and clean. Let's put in this guy. That's good enough. So there's our finished part. It's not finished. We'll part this off on the bandsaw and then we'll bring it back and then face it off, and that'll be the finished part. So it's time to move on to the brass. So let's get this out of the way. Let's pull this material out. There we go. And as you can see, I've got nice looking hammer face. I'll face it off. I got the threaded rod. Off we go. We're looking pretty good. So let's move on to the brass. Let's do the same thing. This one is 1.5 inches, so I got more material to take off, but this time I'm trying not to make the mistake and turn down my shoulder too much. I'm going to shoot for 3/4 of an inch, 750 thou, and then I'll be more careful this time. Let's face this off first, and let's do the same thing we just did. On the money. I need to face some of this off. This is a little more than a 1/4 inch, but that's okay. I need to face some of this off, and then we'll cut our 3/4 inch down to a total of 1 1/4 inches, because this is 1.5 inches. So I need to take a 1/4 inch off of that. But let's get this face down. I think it's about 1/8 inch, and then we'll continue on. Alright, so now I need to cut this off with the bandsaw, and we'll do that in a minute. I think what I'm going to do, yeah, we'll do that. And I'm going to go ahead and cut, while we're at the bandsaw, I'm going to cut this in half, put these in here, and then we'll chamfer the edges, and we'll have our 2 1-inch pieces. So let's get this out of the lathe. And we'll bring you over to the bandsaw. Here's a look at it. I can't do too close with this new camera, but I think you can see pretty good here. There's our part. We're going to cut it off here, and then we'll bring it back to the lathe and finish it out. Brass sure does look nice, but wow, what a mess. Here we go. Let's finish these parts out. So we got our faces cut off. I'm just want to face this off and then put a slight chamfer, and then we'll do the same for the aluminum piece. So let's get a little bit of an angle here. Let's get this operation complete and move on. One more, do it. One more match. There's a slight cut in there, but I'm going to leave it because it's going to get marred up anyway. Alright, let's put a chamfer on that, and this piece will be done. Then we'll move on to the aluminum. Nice. I've got all my parts made, my pieces completed. Again, nothing's perfect. Mistakes are always made on this channel, but I'm sharing those because some of you might make those as well. Maybe you'll learn from them. And I appreciate everybody's advice. Every video has mistakes in it. So, without making this too wordy at the end, I know sometimes I ramble on, so let's just get to it. The idea was to make 2 additional faces for this hammer. Came with a rubber one, has a nylon one I built early on in this journey. I made an aluminum face and a brass face to add to it. I used 1.25 inch stock, 6061 aluminum. We can put that back on the rack for a future project. I used C360 brass. This was 1.5 inches that I purchased for this. I originally was going to make 2 hammer faces, but since then I got some aluminum. I thought there's no need to waste this. I can use this for another project someday. That's 1.5 inches. We'll put that back up on the rack. And I made the threaded rod. Off camera, I didn't see the need. I went ahead and just chamfered these and cut these up. But these are going to be the threaded rod that goes in here that ultimately goes into my hammer. So the last thing to do is some final assembly. I'm going to use some Loctite. I've got this old liquid stuff. I don't know how well. I think it's removable, but it's junk. I don't have any red Loctite, so that's what I'm going to use. So here in a second, let's go ahead and finish assembling this. I'll use Loctite and we'll see what happens. So here's what we got. This hammer face will be aluminum. That fits in there nicely. We got some brass. That fits in there nicely. Last thing to do is to thread these in. I'm going to go ahead and put some Loctite in there. I don't know how well this will work. We can always adjust it later, but put a little bit in there. A little bit in there. Thread this in. Thread this one in. There we go. That'll be all right. A little long, I think it'll be fine. This one I need to get threaded in a little bit farther. Kinda might have boogered up the threads a little bit. Not bad. I just needed to get them chamfered, so let's get this in there. Yeah. A little more. Yeah. And we'll give this one a tweak. And if for some reason they're too long, all we got to do is turn it down a little bit. Clean off some of this Loctite. There's one. Here's the other one. This over here. All right. Let's see how we did. Here's the brass. Get it started. There we go. Make sure we don't have to turn that screw down, that threaded rod down at all. It's possible. Looks like maybe it's a little bit too long. So I need to turn that down a little bit, which means I'll probably have to turn that one down a little bit, but that's okay. this one in and see how it turned out. Yeah, so both of these need to have a, maybe, I think a 1/4 inch will do it for both of them. I'm going to do that off camera. I'll bring you right back. Alright, this should be the final part of this video. So I've got these threaded rods turned down a little bit so that they're not too deep to fit into these. So let's give it a shot. This is the brass. Get it started. Get the caliper out of the way. There we go. So here's the brass. See if it seats down there all the way. It does. Nice. Here is the aluminum. If I can get it started. Maybe. There we go. There's the aluminum. There we go. So now I have a brass face to upgrade this hammer. I've got an aluminum face. They look very nice, I think. The hammer is the ugly thing. I have a rubber face that came with it for different operations, and I also have a nylon face. That turned out really well. So there you go. That's going to complete the project. I finally got that done. I've been wanting to do that. I bought this brass a long time ago to do this project. Very happy with that. That turned out really nice. So now I've got 2 non-marring faces to use for different projects, along with some nylon and some rubber. And yeah, hammer has been upgraded. All right, that's it. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you on the next one.